Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our career panel with a focus on fashion. First today, I'd like to give you a warm welcome to today's presentation. I'm Dr. Jennifer Winward. I'm the founder and CEO of Winward Academy. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you all today and to welcome our esteemed panelists. Today, we are going to hear from three consummate professionals in the fashion industry. We're actually going to post a link in the chat now with a link to a PDF that has a summary of their bios. So please feel free to read through those to anticipate any questions that you might want to ask them at the end during the Q&A. So again, we're going to kind of chat with each panelist one at a time. And then after we connect with Mr. Rosencrance and Mrs. Wood and Mr. Solomon, then we're going to welcome them all back at the end for Q&A. This career panel is proudly presented by the Carol Kimmelman Athletic and Academic Campus, or CCAC. For those of you who might not be aware, CCAC is a world-class facility that's going to be breaking ground in 2021 in Carson. It is going to be the largest academic and athletic campus in the country, serving over 20,000 students in LA and beyond, thanks to incredible partnerships with the US Tennis Association, Tiger Woods Foundation, Disney, ESPN, AEG, LA Galaxy, the Karsh family, and Winward Academy. So lots of great organizations that are involved in putting together this campus. On behalf of all of us supporting the Carol Kimmelman Athletic and Academic Campus, we'd like to thank our nonprofit and school partners for collaborating with us on this panel and for participating with us today. Now it's time to meet your esteemed panelists. Today we will be joined by Kevin Rosencrance, who is a senior buyer at Bloomingdale's, New York. Also by Sharene Wood, who is the president and CEO of 5001 Flavors and Harlem Haberdashery. So we'll get to learn more about that. And also with Yotam Solomon, who is the creative director of COVALENT. Also joining us today is a student co-moderator, Natan Santos. He is a senior at Dartmouth College, majoring in sociology and minoring in markets and the economy. Also very cool, he was an intern actually at Converse last summer and was just offered a full-time position with Converse for when he graduates this year. And he actually also has his own fashion line. He's the co-founder of Our House, which is a clothing line committed to providing a house to young, diverse creatives. So we're going to go ahead and get started right away. I'd like to please welcome Natan and Mr. Rosencrance to please turn on their cameras and their microphones, and we will go ahead and get started. And once Mr. Rosencrance joins us, I'll be able to ask the first question. So Mr. Rosencrance, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, we can. Thank you. So I have the first question for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Natan. So from what I understand about your position, being a senior buyer, right, it sounds like it would involve a lot of travel, getting to go to some of the fashion capitals in the world, meeting with top designers, kind of deciding what products are actually carried in Bloomingdale's stores. So this sounds really fun and really nonstop, right? Is everything kind of glamorous like we see on TV, or there kind of a lot of business elements to what you do? Maybe you can just help us learn more about what a senior buyer does.
Yeah, I think there's both of that. I'm very fortunate to be a buyer for a company and for an area that allows me to travel to areas like Italy, Paris, London to make my purchases, right? That's where a lot of my vendors show their collection. But not all buyers have that luxury. There are buyers for all different areas of business. So there are buyers for children's wear. There's buyer for housewares, sheets. And those buyers may not travel at all, or they may travel domestically. There's definitely different experiences depending on who you work for and what categories you buy for. But that aside, as much as people think that being a buyer is about traveling and buying product, it's just as much, if not more, about running your own business. And that means analyzing data, interpreting that data, working in Excel, driving sales and profitability from a store level and from a comm perspective, and putting that all together. So in this position, really, it's great because it's like a great intersection of art and science and of creative and analytical, because you're really like a small business owner within a bigger company. So I think some people think of The Devil Wears Prada when they think of fashion. I love that movie. I think it amps up the drama, right? But I think that type of environment is probably the more exception, not the norm. When I think about the fashion industry, I think of a couple of things. A, it's very fast paced. That's absolutely true. And yes, there are some glamorous aspects to it and nice perks, but there are some not so glamorous aspects to it as well that we all have to pitch in together to get the job done. So for example, I'm the first one to be down and dirty in the sample closet with my assistants to find samples that need to be turned in for a photo shoot. I am the first one to be working Saturdays at the store during the peak holiday shopping days of December to help out the store. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think it gives a really good kind of overview of the glamorous and fun kind of travel parts and also the kind of down and dirty parts. Natan, did you have a question for Kevin?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Kevin, you graduated summa cum laude in international relations. Now, would you say that that is a typical path? And overall, like, what education would you recommend those who want to follow in your footsteps, and how has like majoring in international relationships helped you?
There is so much diversity of background within fashion that I would say my career path was, or how I got here was probably typical in the sense that people come from all around with different backgrounds. People go into fashion with degrees in finance, business, liberal arts, psychology. How I got to this role is because, I was, after my sophomore year of college, and after 2 summers of internships in Washington, D.C. at like think tanks and nonprofits, I realized that while I was really interested in studying international relations and I was very good at studying it, I didn't have a long-term vocational interest in it. And so I was really looking for the marriage of creativity with analytics. And so, so the summer of my junior year, I interned for a fashion PR company in the city. That was great, but wasn't enough of the analytics business driving challenge that I craved. And then I heard about career development training programs at Bloomingdale's for the buying path. And that's how I got there. So in terms of education, honestly, I sound like my father here, but I always think liberal arts educations give you a very well-rounded, balanced approach and preparation for the future. Again, I'll echo again what I said earlier. So much of this, at least this job, is analytics, driving business, driving sales, driving profitability. I'm working in Excel nonstop, crunching numbers. So whatever education that provides the foundation for that, I think is very important.
And you do a lot of hiring in your position. So what kind of characteristics do you look for in candidates?
Yeah, Very good question. There's a handful that I really look to when I interview people. First is a strong business acumen and strong analytical skills. Again, because we're looking at numbers every day, and it's not enough just to pull a report. You need to be able to pull that report as an assistant and then eventually interpret the data, analyze the data, and then come away with conclusions and action plans on how to drive business and improve profitability. So that's one. The other part is being a good team player and not having a big chip on your shoulder, right? And not having some grandiose sense of entitlement. Because like I said, yes, there are some great perks to the job. I've been to fashion shows and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, I'm getting dirty in a sample closet and I'm behind the desk all day, also in Excel, managing a business. So being a good team player in that aspect and doing everything it takes to get the job done is really important. And then finally, I would say having confidence, being inquisitive, being comfortable asking questions and stating your opinion without fearing that you're disagreeing with someone is very important.
I have to tell you, Mr. Rosencrance, I feel like so much of the advice that you just gave for what you look for in people you hire is just great advice for everybody for every day. The panel we had earlier that was focused on business, the panelists on that one also emphasized the importance of curiosity. And it was just this consistent theme of be curious, think about what you're really passionate about. And so anyway, I love that you shared that because I think it really echoes some of those early sentiments. And then it's just also really important advice, just in general.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, and just a quick reminder too, for any of you who are, attending, or for any of the teachers who are kind of live streaming this, remember to put any questions that you have or that your students have in the Q&A. We're going to transition now from Mr. Rosencrance to our next presenter, Ms. Wood. And again, if you have any questions as the panelists are presenting, please feel free to put those in the Q&A, and then we're going to welcome all three of our panelists back together at the end. So please feel free to put your questions. And I know, Ms. Wood, that Natan has a burning question for you about your business. So I'm going to turn it over to him to ask you the first question.
Excellent.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So you have an amazing resume of clients like Biggie, Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, Beyonce. So I'm really interested, what's it like creating for such an icon? What's it like creating fashion for such icons?
Well, the greatest thing about my job is working with celebrities and actually watch their vision come to life. And so the conversation for me is, who do you want to be? Usually when we work with a client, and they have a very specific vision of the look they want, the feeling they want to convey. So it really is about building their brand. I say that we are a fashion brand, but we're also image consulting, wardrobe consulting, brand building. So when you become an indispensable part of someone's brand, creating their look, creating their hairstyle, doing their makeup, you become part of their team. And so we've often worked with our clients from obscurity to fame. We work with their children. Puff Daddy is one of our earliest clients. He was an intern when I first worked with him. Now he's a mega mogul with a second generation of his own kids that have their own needs in artistry, projects. So it's really about working with someone, helping their dream come true. I can remember working with Biggie Smalls before he had a deal, and he did not look like Biggie Smalls. So you have to understand that clothing is like a costume, and we're telling a story. And there's a lot of conversation about what colors to wear, what silhouettes to wear, what look do you want to evoke, what should we avoid? And you don't realize that 12 people talking about someone's outfit and look is all day what I do. And so it's part theater, part fashion, trend making, but then you realize that those looks that you help create become part of pop culture, and it hits you a little bit later how important they were. I would have never known that working working with Nipsey Hussle, the outfit that we did for him for his hire video would become his funeral program. You would never, that wasn't in my mind. And so that picture is all over the world and is part of pop culture. And so it wasn't probably until my 20th year in business when we had a retrospective that I sat back and looked at the legacy of my clients and realized that I wasn't just making clothes, we were kind of making history. And that's when it was evident to me that what we were doing was more than just making custom clothes.
Wow, that's really exciting. And I think what's interesting too that you shared is just, working with these clients is not just about what are the clothes that they're wearing, right? It's about a statement, it's about a brand, it's about making something memorable. It wasn't fashion, it was history. That was a very bold statement. I think that really makes it exciting for the people on the call who are just passionate about fashion and kind of what it can really mean as an industry. One thing that I kind of like to ask you to connect to something that Mr. Rosencrance shared earlier, right? He's, as a buyer, responsible for kind of the business of menswear within Bloomingdale's. You are the president and CEO of your own company, right? So you probably also have this balance of business and the fashion and creativity. Like, what did it take to get started and to really build your business to what it is now?
So I started 5001 Flavors with my then boyfriend, now husband, who was my business partner. I was a junior, so I was younger than Yotam. I was a junior at Columbia University. I went to Columbia. I was a sociology major. I was pre-law. I lived above the law school and realized after taking 2 classes, this is not for me. I was always administratively successful in my, like I treated my school career as a business. My boyfriend's like, I don't ever see you working, but you are obviously doing fantastic. You have great grades. He is the creative aspect. I am all administration, all organizational. So I'm in front of a computer, I'm on a phone. I usually have 2 phones going at one time, an iPad. I'm looking at deals, sending invoices, doing everything over my phone or computer because that's the way we can work now, which is excellent. And my husband is the creative director. And so he handles all creative aspects. So we divide the business. Somebody has to have client building relationships and bringing the money in and processing invoices. What I do love is that we're working for the same goal, but we have 2 very distinct parts of the job. So my job is not very glamorous. I'm usually making clients pay me. So I'm not as the most popular as he is. He makes everyone look fantastic. I don't get invited to a lot of parties because I am the person that nobody knows, but everybody knows because they have to call me. It's not a high visibility job. I like being behind the scenes. I love working in the entertainment / fashion / sports space because there's a great crossover. But really for me, it was about knowing that I wanted to be in entrepreneurship and almost falling into the fashion category because I could have been an entrepreneur in any type of business, just so it wound up being in fashion. And that is such an interesting industry. But entrepreneurship is probably more what I'm aligned with instead of fashion. And we've turned fashion into a lifestyle because they blend so well. So Harlem Haberdashery, my retail store, is more about pushing a lifestyle and a brand aesthetic. And 5001 Flavors is more about consulting and servicing individuals and brands and creating looks. So there's a lot, when people say fashion, there's a lot of different types to deliver fashion. There's a lot of different ways to be compensated. You can be a consultant, you can have your own business. There's so many different levels, and it's so great as an entrepreneur in the fashion entertainment sports. You can almost create your own lane. And some of the fantastic jobs that everyone has in the entertainment industry did not exist. And so if you can cultivate your own path, if you can create a product or service that is not existing, you can sell it. Back in the early 90s, wardrobe styling was not a huge thing. And it's almost like we came at the perfect time when music and video collided, and they were telling these fantastic stories, and they had these fantastic budgets. They don't exist anymore. But you could come in and literally make $7,000 a day as a main stylist, and that was unheard of. It's gone. It doesn't happen anymore. Technology has kind of killed the video game, but it was just a perfect time to be young and innovative and selling a service and a product that people loved. We've never advertised. We're totally self-referred, which is great. The entertainment industry has a never-ending personalities that come out. So we would get referrals from artists, production companies, photographers. Our artists would become producers. Our producers would star in the movies. They would have co-stars that we would, dress. The co-stars had a press tour that they had to do. They had to take. So it was just a never-ending opportunity to diversify with our clients, as long as we delivered great product, as long as we got great referrals, and as long as we delivered on time.
Absolutely. I love what you shared about like your background. And I love like your perspective on saying like, I know this is my lane in terms of managing the business, and this is the skills that I have in falling into fashion, but still like having a driving factor. So I want to know more about your why, and the work you do in Harlem specifically, with your boutique in Harlem.
Well, I think you already know my why because I read your bio. And so you are on a great path of being able to define your why. I kind of realize it now and didn't realize I was structuring it before. I think where I'm in now, I've been living my whole life to be here. But you have a very definitive view of what you're doing. You have your business, you have your philanthropy that you're doing. For me, Harlem Haberdashery is an homage to Harlem. Is where my husband was born and raised, just like me. It's where he got his style. Is where he got his sensibility of culture, and that's everything that makes 5001 thrive. Is that fashion sensibility. So for me, being inside a community that gave us so much, we have to give back. And so we are committed at Harlem Haberdashery to not only make you look fantastic, but to help the community thrive. There's no sense in you looking fantastic and your community is not thriving. You can't be a business within a community and don't give back. So we're all about youth preservation at Harlem Haberdashery. We're about representation so that Black and brown children of the next generation can see that you can exist inside your neighborhood and be successful. It's about delivering a really cool brand aesthetic. Growing up in Harlem, I felt like the businesses didn't respect the community. They consumed from the community and didn't give back. So through our 501c3 Take Care of Harlem, we are absolutely committed to being the type of store that didn't exist when we grew up. We have a lot of different programs right now. We're in our toy drive phase of our Take Care of Harlem cycle, where we collect about 500 toys to give to different community programs. We have an Elegant for Prom. When COVID wasn't around, we would collect new or gently used gowns and formal wear for graduating seniors. We have a Cool for School supply giveaway. And for us, we are a family-owned and operated boutique. So giving back is an extension of the social responsibility of our family and of our brand. And our home is almost styled. Our store is almost styled like a home. So when you come into our home, you come into our family. And we always say that family takes care of family. So for us, our social activism is actually part of our day-to-day family life. And we take care of each other, and we believe that the community deserves, because there's some really fantastic people up in Harlem. And it actually doesn't even seem like it's work. It's just really about harnessing community engagement, power, donations, and kind of paying it forward. So it's something that I actually love to do. It brings great joy to my heart, but it also is an excellent opportunity to interact with the community members. And so that's something that, all day we'll do. I love to, work with our celebrity clients and watch them grow, but I also like being part of a community that's thriving. And that is really what we want people to do: look good, feel good, and live good.
Oh, I love that. Look good, feel good, live good.
Yes.
That is awesome, Ms. Wood. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I do want to acknowledge that we do see the questions that have come in on the Q&A. We're going to go ahead and transition to Mr. Solomon, learn more about his role as a creative director. But Ms. Wood and Mr. Rosencrance will be joining us back again in about 10 minutes, and we will go through the questions that you all have been posting.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. We'll see you in a few. So Mr. Solomon, if you don't mind turning on your camera. Hello, welcome, welcome. Yes, thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. So first of all, kudos, and how impressive, right, that you were named LA's top young designer, right? Sometimes people hear about awards like that and think that, oh, it just happened overnight, right? But there's a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, right, that go into the fashion industry, that go into developing your own brand. Can you maybe help us better understand your career and your emerging career?
Well, first off, I do want to mention that I've really been enjoying this so far. So thank you, Kevin and Sharene. That was very insightful. For me, I started pretty young, and I just kind of jumped in after a few successful internships, and it became very easily understood that this is no joke. I actually, early in my career, I think in the first 7 years of my career, I worked 7 days a week and never took a single vacation, building up my first brand. And I do agree with what Kevin said also about kind of having a sense of discovery and willingness to think outside the box. I studied fashion design, but I decided to move into footwear design by myself, and ended up actually learning how to develop footwear with the skills I learned about clothing. And what ended up happening was that a lot of media recognized me as a very innovative footwear designer, because I wasn't held up in this conventional way of designing shoes. And I think that ultimately actually helped me evolve into my own design sensibility and my own aesthetics. And in addition to that, I think that when I started, it was unbelievable to see the amount of waste and amount of pollution that was happening at that point in time. Full disclosure, I started my first line in 2007, which makes me feel very old right now. But I realized at the time that no matter what I did, I was actually destroying the planet. And at that point, I decided to really look into more sustainability innovation, which really led me to where I am now. Back in 2011, I also founded another company that really focused on cradle-to-cradle innovation in the fashion space, which means that it's looking into technologies that can completely biodegrade and ultimately return back to the status quo of where we started using the raw materials. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to get all the support that I have to really be named that back in the day, because it does take a lot of effort to get to success, and it takes a village.
I appreciate that insight, absolutely. And it's wonderful hearing from your path and overall how you got there. In college, you attended Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. Would you recommend this type of education for someone that wants to go into fashion design?
Yes, I do. They've actually increased the curriculum since I've graduated. They have a lot more programs now. That said, though, I definitely encourage everybody to really think about where they are in their professional level. It's not just about being a designer or a pattern maker or a buyer like Kevin is. I think that we all have a space in the industry if we want to. And this is actually a super exciting time for all professions in my mind. As a creative director, and specifically in the sustainable space, my work goes far beyond design. I get to develop new materials. And specifically with COVALENT, we utilize air carbon, which is a material that's actually made from sequestered carbon. And they've been developing for the last 17 years. So I get to work with scientists and engineers and chemists, and also a team of professionals that studied fashion background and work in the industry. But it actually goes all across professions. We have a lawyer and we have an accountant, and it doesn't exclude anybody from the industry. So my biggest advice is really follow your own heart and your own intuition to determine what it is that you're really passionate about. No matter what the profession is, there's always space for you to join the fashion industry. It doesn't have to be within the design field itself. If you do want to learn fashion design, FIDM, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, is a really wonderful option. And they do have business-specific curriculum. So I definitely recommend making sure you know your business. And also, just like Kevin said, there's a huge amount of math. You wouldn't believe the amount of math that I do on a daily basis, just with pattern makings and inventory projections and tech packs and production numbers. So lots of math. So I hope you like math.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So you have a wide variety of experiences, from working with Kim K, Jessica Simpson, like what developing your own passion into like this carbon emissions work that you're doing. Can you explain a little bit more of what like COVALENT does, and explain a little more about like what the work is there?
Of course. Yeah, that's a multifaceted question. Good one. I think that at the end of the day, showing your true colors is super key. I feel that when we're younger, sometimes we see some of our traits, like our personal traits, as negatives. And I think that people have to realize that our individuality is so important, and also takes me back to a point that Sharene had. Inclusivity in the space right now is so key. Having different points of view, having unique talent join your journey, whether they bring a different perspective or speak a different language or have other opinions. I think that we live in such an exciting age where we actually get to have direct access in some cases to celebrities and have them join our own journey and really learn from them. To me, it's really about creating a transparent and sustainable way of living. And when I say sustainable, I'm not just talking about the eco-friendly practice. I'm talking about supporting your own environment, your own community. I like to use the 3 Ps, people, planet, profit. That's kind of how I look at business. But I'm so lucky that I get to do what I do, because I get to continuously evaluate what I can do to support a better future and use a material like air carbon. So my work with COVALENT, where we're manufacturing eyewear products and leather accessories from this wonder material that's actually made from greenhouse gas. So by locking this material, sequestering it, and then transforming it through a unique fermentation process, I can transform it into raw materials. I highly recommend you going on the website just to learn more about it. But there's so many cool new technologies coming to the market. There's so much innovation. I really believe that we're going to be going into a meta material innovation generation soon, where we see really wonderful materials coming to the market that truly transform the way we live, but also how we support our planet, because that's the most important thing that we can do. So it's a balance, the balance of really believing in what you do, doing everything you can, working absolutely unrealistic hours. I like the question for Kevin about, traveling. There isn't a day that I'm not early up or super late at night talking to Asia or Europe. So it's really about being as proficient as you can, really believing in yourself, and really believing and enjoying the teamwork and the journey, right? So it's really about the journey. And I couldn't agree more with Sharene about, the community. I think that's something we need to continuously nurture. And that's another really great point to get visibility and kind of increase your network, whether it's celebrity or even down to the person that's packing up your product and puts it all together in a box, in a carbon negative box. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, appreciate you.
So as we transition to the Q&A, and Ms. Wood and Mr. Rosencrance turn their cameras and microphones back on, Mr. Solomon, I'm going to throw the first Q&A question to you as they rejoin us. One of the attendees asked, at what age did you know you were interested in the fashion industry? Is this something you knew when you were 2? Is this something you discovered in high school? What was kind of your age?
Great question. apparently I was very good dressed as a toddler. So it was always there. I actually studied classical music before transitioning to fashion. I was a viola player, but I always knew it was there in the background. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to move into the industry up until high school. But I would say trust your gut.
Great. And then Mrs. Wood or Mr. Rosencrance, do you have anything to add about kind of the age that you discovered this interest?
Well, I've always loved fashion. I love to look great, feel great. But for me, it was more about entrepreneurship. I can remember, working in my dad's store and knowing that we paid $10 for this candy and he'd let me keep the profit, and it was like $50. So one, I thought I was rich, but I love the idea of creating your own economy. For me, and that's what it really is about, entrepreneurship, creating something out of nothing. And that is what I feel like any business person does. So I would say about 10. I've been hooked since 10 years old.
I've always been interested in fashion and like shopping, right? Like in middle school, I remember being very interested in spending time at the mall with my friends and actually shopping and looking at the clothes. It wasn't until college where I actually figured out how to take that interest and direct it into a career.
That's great. What about Yotam? Because you're also a fashion entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I think for me, probably 5. Or since I was young, like 5, 6, 7, my mother used to like repurpose curtains and reupholster like her seats and like do the couches. And this idea of interior design like led into fashion. So I would go to thrift shops with her and buy old garments and repurpose them. Like we were humble people, so we didn't come from a lot of money. So I had to find innovative ways to look nice. And I like fashion was a costume for me. So I would always like put on clothes and feel as if like I was part of this other class or whatever, feel better about myself and feel good about, wearing the cool kicks to class and whatever the case may be. So I got into fashion extremely young, begging my mom to teach me how to sew so I can like repurpose garments and stuff like that.
That's awesome. So I'll go ahead and throw the next question. So somebody asked kind of after college, what are the steps to starting a career? So feel free to jump in if there's someone who wants to take that question first.
Well, I'll start. I mean, I was in college. So nobody has to do the math. I was 20 when I was a junior. We're just celebrating our 28th year in business. So I am 48. The real deal to be an entrepreneur is you don't have to go to college. For me, college gave me a great opportunity to learn how to live in the world and to be around a lot of different people. But the skill set that you need is really still real world. You have to get out in the world, no matter what degree you have, and you have to intern under someone. And that is one of the easiest ways to learn the business, the deep down dirty part of the business too, because you'll be doing everything, but you need to know every part of whatever business you get in, because it will ultimately help you be the best wherever you land. So understanding what happens when you cut a swatch, how to cut a swatch, how much swatch to cut, understanding pattern making, understanding about all of the needs of your customer. There's so much life lessons that you get working under someone that's considered a master, but that means working for free. So if you come out thinking that you're going to get a job with no experience, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. But those internships have led people to great places, great titles, positions of power, but you have to know your basics, and you cannot get that from a textbook. You have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I think there's a lot of pressure nowadays on kids to feel that right after college, they need to have their career mapped out. They need to know exactly what they're going to do, and they're going to need to be doing that while making tons of money. I think that your career is a long haul and you're there to learn. And I would suggest after college, talk to people, network, apply for internships or entry-level jobs, and really test things out, because you don't know. You're not going to have all the answers of what you want to do long term. And you'll test it out. And if that position is not for you, then you can pivot to somewhere else. And all of those steps are building blocks for your long-term future. And they're just going to make you better candidates in the long term. I think in the fashion world, what everyone has in common is a passion for the industry, right? And an eagerness to learn. And that passion starts at a very young age, just like everyone said on this panel. So I would be lying if I said everyone was in the fashion industry for the money. So let's be honest there. So, but you got to do what you love.
Well put. Internships, get those internships, because you're gonna learn so much. You're gonna make those connections. You're gonna get into the industry. A fact that I don't talk about very often is I was actually sued a year into business by a very big fashion brand because of a iconography symbol I had to do with my name. And I was attacked by multiple lawyers in the same stage, and I had to go through a whole cease and desist. And the one thing that I remember from that is kind of wishing I had one internship where I learned about a legal case like this, to have the insight. So whether it's financial, whether it's legal, whether it's operational, get those internships, because you're going to learn everything you need to know if you want to go independent. It's my biggest advice.
That's great. So I will ask this next question that was posed in the Q&A, but I'm worried it might scare everyone on the call, but please do answer honestly. Somebody asked, how many days off per year do you have? Like, do you actually get weekends and vacations? So Natan, you're going to hear this as you're about to transition from an intern at Converse to a full-time employee. So it'll help you know what to expect.
Ooh, well, I'll go first. So having your own business, no, you do not get the standard day off. It is not a 9 to 5. It's a whenever you need to work type of situation. But you as an individual, as a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, you have to make these personal boundaries about your life. Being an entrepreneur allows you to be much more flexible with your time. My mom has to go to physical rehab 3 times a week. And so those hours of that day, I can't work, but I have that flexibility to stop, take her and come back and work even when I'm there on the phone. So there's a lot of freedom to be in entrepreneurship, but everything is your problem. Everything is for you to solve. Every pen, paper clip you buy, everything is your expense. So you realize that you are a little bit more vested in the work. It doesn't seem like work because you are rewarded so quickly in terms of you complete a project, you get paid. So there's no kind of middleman. So if entrepreneurship and getting paid versus how you work is not for you, then maybe you do need to get a job where you can get very specific times off and very specific days. I mean, there's certain times that I can't take off, or I have to change my vacation because something came up. So it all depends on what's valuable to you. Do you want the flexibility of being your own person in your own world that you create? Or do you want that specified, guaranteed 9 to 5 with this time off and these days off?
Great. And I'm just noticing the time that we have about 1 minute left. So if it's okay, Natan, I would love to ask you one question before we just say goodbye to everyone. You are currently a senior in college, right? You're going to be graduating in 2021 and then starting your journey at Converse. I'd love to just learn more about kind of what it was like for you to get an internship, during COVID, to see your work in that internship at Converse transition into a full-time career. Could you maybe just share a little bit more, maybe any tips you have for the students on the call?
For sure. I think for me, like I've always had an interest in fashion, but I didn't necessarily know how to get into the fashion industry and have access to it. I mean, I'm from Boston, and the fashion scene here isn't like large like New York City or LA. So it's kind of hard to find people in that industry here. So I started off doing like nonprofit work, and then I did finance and all these other things. And then finally, you know, I told myself, I love clothes and I love fashion. I love storytelling. How do I get back into that? And I started reaching, we have tools now that many the generations prior to us did not have, like LinkedIn. So I went on LinkedIn and I found all the recruiters in the Boston area that were Puma, Converse, Reebok, New Balance, all these recruiters. And, you know, a lot of them didn't answer my response on LinkedIn, but what I ended up doing was finding some email format on rocketreach.com. So I recommend that app. That Rocket Reach, then I started formulating all these emails to these people and just copy and paste. After 75 emails, I finally got a response from the Converse recruiter. And essentially, like, you know, she set up a 15-minute meeting. I talked about my experiences. And although I didn't have prior experience in fashion, I really talked about the skills I did outside of the classroom. So I had a fashion club in school. I was working on my own line. All these experiences, and then the marketing experiences that I had in the internships prior, allowed for me to talk whatever talk I needed to get into the door. And essentially, you know, these people aren't expecting a wide range of experiences, but they are expecting that you are, you know, resourceful and can find and can learn. And that's one of the most important things is if you have that curiosity, you can learn it. Can you articulate that to these recruiters is ultimately how I was able to land that Converse. And then from there, it's like relationship building and performing. My mother always told me, like, if you're going to be like a soldier, be a sergeant. And that was one of the most important things that I take with me in everything. It's when you finally get an opportunity, perform at your best ability, because you don't know where that's going to land you. And ultimately, like during COVID, it was so hard to build relationships. But I think what it did was laying the playing field. It leveled the playing field because now people are more receptive to answering emails. And I was setting up calls with the CEO. I was setting up calls with people who regularly, if I was in the office, probably wasn't going to have the ability to do that with. So I definitely recommend just being genuine and intentional with building relationships and then performing well. Just perform well. And any experience that comes your way, or if anyone asks you to do something, just say yes. I think the power of yes is at this age right now. We don't have a lot of commitments. So I think just saying yes and not making sure if it's within your means, but you never know where those opportunities will land you.
Wow, what an amazing sentiment. I love what your mom tells you. So for everyone on the call, if you want to be a fashion soldier, you need to be a fashion sergeant is what it sounds like. So that's amazing. Well, this has just been so incredible. Mr. Rosencrance, Mrs. Wood, Mr. Solomon, you all have been so amazing. Natan, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with your career at Converse and also with your own business, your own fashion company. And yeah, just thank you again so much to everyone for being a part of today.
Thank you so much. And I've just
Thank
put
you.
my social media name. Please follow me. And Natan, you stay in contact. You may give me a job soon. And I definitely want to speak to you if you're going to Converse.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Thank you. I'll definitely connect.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your time. So appreciated.
Take care.
Thank you.